Hello and welcome. I'm Josh Schimmels, publisher and CEO of the Los Angeles Business Journal. Thank you for joining us for our final discussion in our 2026 Real Estate Trends Mid-Year Series. Today, we're going to be focused on the future of development through innovation, AI, and opportunity. Commercial real estate has always been an industry that's been defined really based on its ability to adapt so much change. Today, emerging technologies, artificial intelligence, evolving market conditions, and changing development strategies are reshaping how projects are envisioned, designed, built, and even delivered across Southern California. While headlines often focus on uncertainty, innovation is creating new opportunities for organizations who are willing to think outside the box, for those who are willing to think differently. From identifying growth in emerging markets to improving project delivery and embracing things like AI, today's industry leaders are finding new ways to create value in an increasingly complex environment. Our conversation today is going to explore where those opportunities are merging, where they're coming together, how technology and AI, how these things are transforming commercial real estate, and why innovation, the human element, strategic thinking, and strong relationships will continue to shape the future of development. Joining us today is a leader who's helping drive many of these conversations already. He's going to share his perspective on where the market is headed, how tech is changing the projects and the way they come together, and what business leaders should be paying attention to as the industries continue to evolve. Before we begin, I do want to again thank all of our amazing partners who've been through this entire series with us all week. First, a special thank you to our diamond sponsors, CBRE, Logos Faith Development, and Trammell Crow Company. And thank you to our platinum sponsors, City of Lancaster, City of Ontario, Kidder Matthews, Nixon Peabody, Pancow Builders, and University of Redlands, Los Angeles. Thank you all so much. All right, we've got a great conversation to get going with. Let's get started. Please join me in welcoming Trammell Crow Company's Southern California market leader, Greg Ames. Greg, thanks for joining us today. It's great to have you here.
Hey, great to be here, Josh. Thanks for having me.
All right, we're going to dive right into this because we've got a lot of really great content to cover. So let's start with a little bit of a state of the market, all right? There's no shortage of headlines about commercial real estate, whether it's here in the Business Journal or other news sources. But the reality on the ground is not always exactly the same, and sometimes it's a little bit more nuanced than what you see in the press. My question to you is, as you look across Southern California, are there certain types of projects right now that are generating the most momentum today and which have become a little bit more challenging to pencil? So both sides, which have the most momentum and which are a little bit more challenging right now? What are your thoughts on that?
Sure. Well, it's no secret, Josh, that it's been a really challenging few years in Southern California, particularly on the development side of things. And as a merchant builder, we're really focused on timing when we try to deliver our projects. So we're very, very sensitive to that and very thoughtful about the market. Look, we've got a $7 billion pipeline of deals under control in Southern California across an array of different product types. So we've got a lot of visibility into what's going on in markets, submarkets, again, on various demand perspectives. But the simple truth is there are always opportunities that you can find on a deal-by-deal basis. Yes, it's great when you can bet on the macroeconomic environment and things are going favorably for you. In that case, candidly, everybody with like a pickup truck and a set of drawings can hire an architect and a land use attorney, and they're like developers overnight, and sometimes that works out. It's moments in the cycle like these where the real expertise actually matters, and our ability to identify specific opportunities becomes that much more important. If you think about Greater Los Angeles on the whole, it's very easy to look at it and say, oh, geez, we're actually going through a moment of population contraction. How can new development make sense in the face of that? But then you dial in with a slightly closer view of the market, and you can see that no, people are not staying still. They're actually moving around. And so there do become certain locations, certain submarkets that are beneficiaries of in-migration population within Greater Los Angeles, again, even as the overall population or household formation numbers might be doing something slightly different. So we're moving forward on a number of big multifamily opportunities, but it's very, very specific. It's because the numbers make sense in those very specific submarkets, and precisely that side of the intersection, there's a story to be told. If I look back 20 years ago, when I first came out here in LA and was building things, we did a project, 2000 Avenue of the Stars with JP Morgan, and this is between 9/11 and the GFC. If you were looking at the macro data, it never would have made sense to build a spec 790,000 square foot office building. Again, if you were looking solely at the vacancy numbers, solely at the job growth and the demand numbers, but if you adjusted your optic and you looked a bit more closely at the market, you would have seen that there was clearly a thesis and argument that there was demand for large floor plate trophy class space in West LA, and that was in spite of the vacancy numbers. So again, JP Morgan, our partner, agreed with that thesis, made a big bet, and they were handsomely rewarded because it's exactly what the market wanted. But again, if you were only looking at the macro numbers, it didn't make sense at all. So these are the moments in the cycle where we're able to leverage our very, very specific market-driven insight about what's going on in Greater LA, and convert that into actionable ideas that will create rewards for our partners who really get to enjoy the opportunity to be early movers in a moment in the cycle like we are now.
Well, that's really interesting. I mean, you mentioned actionable ideas. You must have an awful lot of them in the works with, I think you said $7 billion in deals happening, total deal values happening in Southern California right now. That's a significant amount. I want to ask you this. One strategy and something that we've actually noticed quite a bit in the last, 2 to 4 years has been the concept of adaptive reuse. We've seen it at some of our award programs. We've read about it. We hear it kind of as a buzzword where people are talking about it. And while many see it as a solution for some underutilized buildings and properties, it's not always as straightforward as it seems. There's a lot of work and sometimes permitting things that go into it. From your perspective, are adaptive reuse projects becoming a more attractive alternative to ground up development? Why or why not? What are your thoughts?
It almost goes back to my prior answer at some levels, my perspective on development, which is it's very much deal and opportunity specific. There's this idea that, hey, we'll just make adaptive reuse easy to do from a policy perspective, and all of a sudden it's going to happen. There are so many examples in the world where we live when it's absolutely cheaper to buy something new than it is to repair something. You wouldn't think twice about buying a new microwave to replace a broken microwave, or even me. I remember a situation I was in where I was in this car accident, and you took your car into the shop and go, "Oh, it's totaled," and you look at it and you're like, "It's not totaled. How can you tell me it's totaled?" And it's just a question of math because repairs are very expensive. And that was just taking a broken car and making it a fixed car. I'm not even proposing taking a car and turning it into a truck. You'd almost never think that would be cheaper than just buying a new truck. But clearly with real estate, because the sustainability and the concerns about preserving buildings and preserving characters in neighborhood and not doing unnecessary demolition, absolutely it's worth making an extra effort to figure out if that's possible. But it's really just a question as to whether or not a building can be repositioned in a code compliant manner for a different use to go, in this case, from office to multifamily is almost always the conversation that we're having. And clearly our policymakers ought to be doing everything they can to make that as simple as possible. Because the truth is the deck is stacked against it. When the dynamic makes it very challenging and you run into code issues, it becomes almost impossible. So from a policy perspective, you got to address the code issues so that it actually has a hope. Because beyond just the code considerations of repositioning a building, you've got to have the right building with the right bones, such that if you repositioned it, it actually became a multifamily building that was worth living in and easy to reposition, and was in the type of a neighborhood where people actually want to live at the price point that would cost you to reposition that building. And it's very challenging to get all of those things to line up. I mean, in some cases, you'll have a perfect candidate building for a repositioning, but it's in the wrong neighborhood. There's not multifamily demand in that neighborhood. It's a low rent district. There's no way that you can make the math make sense to reposition this perfect candidate of a building to reposition. And then you can have things on the flip side where it's a perfect market, it's a perfect neighborhood for adaptive reuse. The math makes sense, everything is good, but the building itself is so physically challenging to apply a conversion to, that math doesn't make sense. And you wind up in both of those cases, you wind up doing demolition and rebuilding as a result. So, for us, we look at adaptive reuse, from an opportunistic perspective. When we run into those opportunities, and we often do, and they make sense, that's fantastic. We're going to take those opportunities and perform on them. But it's not strategic, because it really is finding a needle in a haystack. And candidly, the evidence is what's happening in the market. One would think that every time legislation is passed, that there would be adaptive reuse happening everywhere, but it's not. And the reason why it's not is because it's just so difficult to do. But look, when you do find one of those deals, boy, they are incredibly fun to work on. There are a few things better than releasing the old bones of a building and giving it new life and a new purpose and doing something cool in a community. So look, we all love those deals, but they're really, really hard to find.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, we have seen quite a few fantastic projects that have gone from the office to the multifamily. And obviously, even though there's population changes on the downward, there's still a high demand for multifamily and for new and additional housing in Los Angeles throughout the county. But to your point, there are an awful lot of variables that need to line up perfectly in order for that to happen. All right, I want to shift gears a little bit here. I want to talk about technology because it's something that every industry is using, and they're using AI, and we'll get to the AI part in just a little bit. But as it just relates to technology, generally speaking, and whether it's ground up development or repositioning an existing asset, we all know that tech is playing a really important role. What innovations are you seeing that are currently having the greatest impact on things like construction and design and project delivery today that perhaps weren't even an option 5, 7, 8 years ago?
Wow, it's hard to answer that question and not go directly towards the bright light of AI and its near infinite applications in the world of design, construction, development, even financial analysis. The truth is that, properly deployed, right, AI in and of itself is not really anything that's useful, but it's the specific applications and specific tools and the way that you weave it into workflows that absolutely move the needle. And we've seen it everywhere from making renderings easier to do and more accessible, so you have a better sense of what it is that you're trying to develop, to better modeling of traffic impacts or noise or dust or forecasting the construction process. Even just doing field walks and preparing monthly reports and even managing draw processes. It's incredible how much AI is not making hey, there's this one big thing that's changing the way that we do development. It's about how applying these tools properly allow us to do each individual step of the process faster, more efficiently, with a higher degree of quality and precision that really lets us get on with the business of doing what we do, and that's develop great projects. So we're all seeing lots of versions of lots of tools being released. boy, it's almost like every other day you're seeing some new tool that's coming out that has the potential to change the way that we do specific tasks. Nothing that's going to fundamentally change the way that we do development per se, but it really is changing the little steps that go into development. I think that it's really fantastic. I mean, there's a lot of people are saying like, oh, look, AI is going to make us dumber and not as competent as we used to be. And I read some books and seem to recall that like back when the calculator came out, that's what people were saying about the calculator. Like, oh, we can't let kids use calculators in school because it's going to make them dumb. A lot of folks were very, very upset about it. And, I look back at it and yeah, absolutely. We use calculators. You still use calculators. I don't think that it made anyone dumb at the end of the day. You had to learn to trust the output of it, and you had to learn how to use it. But at the same point in time, what it did is it made us more effective, more efficient, have higher quality answers, so that we could focus on more important things. And that's what I think most of us are really looking at AI to do in the business and in the industry. So look, again, calculators didn't make us dumber. They let us solve bigger problems, and that's the bet I'm making on AI.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I recently had a discussion with the dean of a business school, and the concept of the calculator came up in the AI comparison. And what he was saying is, it's crazy for us to try to tell our students not to use AI in their learning. So, as a university, this particular one said, we are going to adapt to it and encourage and allow our students to use AI in all of their writing and all their reports, because A, they're going to anyway, and because B, it would be ridiculous to not allow them to use the best tools out there. It's our job to learn how to adapt to teach with AI as a component. And I think that's similar to what you're saying.
Oh, great answer. Sign me up for that class. I'm totally on with that philosophy.
Let me ask you this. So before I move on, I just wanted to clarify. You talked a little bit about AI and the use of processes and to make things faster and more efficient. Do you see AI changing sort of the end product that we as end users end up seeing at all, or are we not there yet?
Oh, I think so. It's certainly going to affect demand of various things. It's hard to be in the world of commercial real estate in Greater Los Angeles and not understand its impact on the entertainment industry and its demand for different types of studio space. And it's this great equalizer that is allowing a lot of small businesses to compete with big businesses. It's allowing people to be candidly much more productive at home. But conversely, it makes the need to be seen doing your work in many cases even more important than it was, so that people can appreciate your personal contribution and not that you just may or may not be less valuable than the agent that you have managing your workload. So in many cases, it makes the human element even more important than it was before. And I see that as driving people out of their homes and into office space and into the public domain even more than it has been in the post-COVID world. So it's certainly changing how our investors look at deals. It's certainly changing the way that occupiers are approaching their space needs, and it's affecting how we deliver space in the first place to them. So you've got a lot of different things moving at once. You have both sides of the ledger, from the supply side and the demand side. And candidly, the developers and the investors who figure out how to read those signals simultaneously, they're going to do very well.
Yeah, it's really interesting, continuing that conversation. I recently attended a publishing industry conference, and one of the topics was AI and how some media organizations are kind of experimenting with it, and others are using it to create real value in their business. And what I'm hearing from you is, a lot of real value. From what you've seen in your industry, what does separate the firms that are truly integrating AI into their operations and creating business value from those who are simply talking about it or experimenting or maybe haven't completely committed to it yet?
Yeah, I think I recall hearing or reading a statistic recently that said something to the effect of, 90% of commercial real estate companies are experimenting with AI, and only 5% feel like they're achieving their goals. Candidly speaking, my team at Trammell Crow Company, we're trying to be the 1% that's exceeding our goals. We have almost 24 initiatives that we're working on just in our local teams, throughout the organization, and it's everything from handling minutia administrative tasks that might free us up to be work on higher value activities, to doing the types of things that you wish you could get to if only you had time to get to it, like the nice to have tasks that actually just never happen, and all the way to like these fully agentic projects where we're running very sophisticated Monte Carlo simulations on deal forecasting and whatnot, big thinking type stuff. But it runs the gamut. But I think, Josh, to answer your question, what is it that makes a difference in the organizations that are nailing it and those that are not? Is it's very easy to get one of your employees a Gemini or a Claude account or Copilot or ChatGPT or whatever it may be, and say, there you go, you've been empowered. And hope that's somehow going to change things. But the organizations that are really succeeding are the ones that have a sense of focus from at all levels of the organization. The top managers and leaders in the organization, all the way down to the last person in the mailroom or the front desk or wherever that is in your on your team, has got to be on board with the idea that AI fluency and figuring out how to make things more effective and more productive in your organization. That's got to be throughout the system. I've got a funny quote that I share with folks in my team, and that is, look, I really don't think any of us are going to be replaced by AI, but we could all easily be replaced by someone who knows how to use AI better than we do. So, make it your mission to know how to use AI tools in your role, whatever your role is, such that you are the most capable person at your position anywhere in the market. And again, it can be very, very simple things. It can be very small things. It can be huge, waterfall scale agentic operations. It could be lots of stuff, but honestly, it really doesn't take much. But it does take a consistent commitment from the entire organization, top down. So, AI really is not about reducing headcount. It's about freeing up the headcount that you already have to be as maximally productive and as effective as possible. Because the truth is, everything that we generate now, we have to assume that it's going to get read and digested by somebody else's AI agent on the other end of the email. So you need to make sure that your work product is incredibly up to snuff. I mean, back when we work with typewriters, like you were allowed to have typos, thus the word typo. Then we got into word processing, and all of a sudden you couldn't have typos anymore. Like everything had to be perfect. Well, that makes sense. Like the bar gets raised every time you add new technology, and so the bar is simply getting raised now. And so you got to make sure that your work product really, really is the highest quality can possibly be by utilizing and leveraging these tools. So you need to make sure that the product that you produce, whatever it is, that it's up to the test and it's the highest quality that you can produce.
Yeah, I mean, so important. A couple of just really simple keywords that I wrote down: complete integration, AI fluency. I love the analogy or the way of looking at will our people and our teams and ourselves, will we be replaced by AI? Maybe not, but we might be replaced by somebody who understands how to utilize AI a little bit more efficiency with a little bit more efficiency. I think that's a really strong statement. I love that. I want to kind of go back to what you made a comment a little bit earlier. You used the word, you talked about the human element, okay? And then right now you mentioned again sort of the replacement of people. We know that in commercial real estate, it's always been and will continue to be it's a relationship business. Development happens in discussions. It happens at lunches, in conference rooms. It happens on job sites and out in the community, not just on the use of technology and behind computer screens. How do you leverage it in a way that, and you've touched on it a little bit, but more specifically, in a way that enhances the relationships with your clients, with the community, with the stakeholders, rather than replacing the human element that's so critical to the end use and the end product? What does that look like?
Yeah. So, Josh, I think about as a real estate developer. You said it. It's the people element. It's the relationships is the most important part of this business. Yeah, you've got real estate and you've got investment dollars and you have all these things. The only thing that I can't make more of, period, is time. I can't create more time. It moves in the one direction. There's no rewind button. That's it. If I think about what's precious to me, it's my time. And so figuring out ways to utilize AI in order to create more time on my calendar, to be more available and to be more present, both with my team and with my partners and with our investors and with our clients. For me, that's what it's really about. That's what it has the potential to unlock for all of us. I mean, we all waste so much time managing our in baskets, reviewing pro formas, redlining documents, and that's all important. And we need the skills to be able to do all of that. But if you can make any of those steps just a little bit faster or a little bit more precise, well, now all of a sudden you bought 15 minutes out of that hour, and maybe you can buy a couple of hours out of a day if you're really, really effective out of it. And, maybe you can really start to pile up some more hours by the end of the week, all of which can now be spent towards people. Look, being smart about AI and commercial real estate for me is about spending less time on mundane tasks so that we have more time for the relationships, more time for the people, and candidly, more time to do more deals. Because that's where we all get paid. So if we can figure out an opportunity to do that, and if AI is the way to get there, then yeah, that works. But I think that's where you can connect AI with what matters in commercial real estate, and that's the relationships and the people.
I really appreciate that response. I think it's something that we all need to be reminded of every once in a while, and maybe even more often. The value of time. Your comment, it goes one direction. You also can't change the speed of it. So the things we can do to get access to more of it or to have more free available time is incredibly important. That's the perfect segue, because as time has gone on, we've had a great conversation here today, and I can't believe we're at the end of our conversation, coming to our last question. Let's close with kind of a fun one. Our last question on this topic today is on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being, proceed with caution, and 10 being just gung ho, full speed ahead. How optimistic are you today about the future of commercial real estate development in Los Angeles? And as you answer that by giving a number, what's your biggest reason behind that number?
Oh boy. All right. Well, look, I'm a commercial real estate developer, so I'm like a gung-ho optimist, like by definition. But at the same point in time, I have to be very realistic and responsive to that which I'm seeing in the market, and that's what our investors and our capital partners are seeing. I'll give you, if I've got to be cornered on a number, Josh, I'll probably say a 6. We're going to be in the upper half of it, but not gung ho crazy. And I think the reason why I would land somewhere in that category is like I said at the very beginning, it's been a tough few years, but we are actually starting to see, some of the ice melting and blades of grass and flowers sticking up, like whatever visual analogy you want to come up with. Projects are starting to happen. Capital is starting to flow. There is some sense of of not necessarily tremendous optimism, but that like, okay, we've sort of reset where the market is. We've reset what our expectations are. There has been some land adjustments. We've certainly seen a bottoming out of vacancy across most of the product types. Absorption is starting to happen across the board in virtually every product type at this point. Does it make sense to do development on every deal in every market, every product? Absolutely not. So if that were the case, we'd be a 10. But the fact that there are specific opportunities out there where we are clearly seeing that this deal makes sense to move on, that's what will put me up in a 6. And probably next year this time, I'm hope we're at a 7 or 8 or 9.
Well, it sounds like, to your point, we're in the second half on the upper side, and it sounds like there's also optimism from you looking forward on what we might be looking at in a year and a half, 2 years from now. So we'll accept that. I love that as a response. Greg, this has been a really great and important conversation. I want to thank you for taking the time to be here, for sharing your insights, a lot of thoughtful perspective on how innovation and emerging technologies are shaping the future of real estate development. And for our listeners out there, I think today's conversation reminds us that innovation isn't simply just about adopting new technology. It's also about using new tools to make better decisions and to uncover opportunities, things like time and efficiencies, and ultimately strengthen the relationships that have always been at the heart of commercial real estate and the entire industry. Thank you so much for being a part of this today.
Hey, thanks for having me, Josh. It's been a great conversation, great way to spend my day. Thank you.
Throughout the series, we've explored the trends, the challenges, and of course, the opportunities transforming Southern California's commercial real estate landscape. Whether discussing capital markets, development, construction, or emerging technologies, one theme has remained consistent. Organizations that embrace innovation while staying focused on their people, their partnerships, and long-term value will be best positioned for the future. We'd like to thank all of our partners again for making this possible, for their investment of time and being part of this, for their innovative responses, for the energy. I want to thank everyone who joined us throughout the series. We hope that the conversations have provided you with valuable insight and great takeaways for what's happening in our industry. And to conclude the series, be sure to look for our Real Estate Trends Mid-Year Series Recap, which is going to be in the print edition and also online of the Business Journal within the August 3rd issue. It's going to feature additional insights. We're going to have Q&A responses from all of our speakers through all 4 parts, and it's really a comprehensive look at everything commercial real estate in the market. Thank you all for tuning in. Look forward to hosting you next time.